Welcome to the Everyone's a Critic movie review podcast. I'm your co-host, Bob Zerl. With me, as always, is professional film critic Sean Patrick. Visit us at ihatecritics.net, Everyone's a Critic podcast.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our handle is CriticsPod. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Alexa, all your podcatchers. If you go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review and let us know that you did that, especially if you're from another country, we will ship you a copy, or the next person to do it will get a copy of the 4K Blu-ray of I Spit on Your Grave, inspired by our Patreon episode that we did.
Or, Bob, I've thrown in something extra to that. If you give us a 5-star review, I promise to go and spit on your grave,
do that
wherever
too.
you are.
If you would like us to, or spit on any grave you'd like us to spit on.
Yeah, you choose the grave.
But it's got to be within a 100-mile radius of where we live.
Yeah. Yeah, be fair on the travel.
And then there's our Patreon page as well, patreon.com/criticspod. If you want to help support the podcast, there you can listen to that episode of where we did a deep dive into I Spit on Your Grave, which I thought was one of my more favorite episodes that we've done, and I think you would agree. Mm-hmm. We need to have Amy back on again. She was an excellent co-host that episode. And every time she has been on, for that matter. And then we just recorded a Beatles episode that should be out anytime. So where we do a deep dive into Abbey Road. Or not a deep dive, but a deep dive for us.
Yeah.
Into Abbey Road. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, that's you can get at patreon.com/criticspod. And then if you want any of our podcast merch, head over to ihatecritics.net. Click on our TeePublic link if you want to get some of that. Before we jump into the episode, the Critics' Choice Awards, or the nominations, were announced. You want to go into that a little bit? Yes, indeed.
Yeah, we made that announcement today that the Critics' Choice Awards have been announced, and I was very proud of what the movies that I chose to nominate this year, which included movies that I knew weren't going to get nominated. I did nominate Lamb for Best Picture. I did nominate Killing of Two Lovers for Best Picture, because I do feel that they're two of the best movies of 2021. I fully and completely believe that, and I stand by it. They did, obviously, among those that didn't get nominated, among the many good movies that didn't get nominated, but there are plenty of good movies that did get nominated, and we'll start with, I guess, the one that got the most nominations, which was Belfast. I don't love Belfast. I don't hate Belfast. I think Belfast is this year's Green Book minus the controversy. It's just a kind of gentle, pleasant movie that a lot. It's like the country music of movies that everybody can rally around very easily without anybody complaining.
Yeah.
Belfast gets a nomination for Best Picture. Coda, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, Tick, Tick, Boom, and West Side Story. I love Tick, Tick, Boom. That's probably the one I'll pick for Best Picture, since obviously my picks didn't make it, which includes The Green Knight, which is the one I'm the most ashamed of. As a group, I think we all missed that one. I think I love the Critics' Choice Awards. I've never badmouthed any of the membership of the Critics' Choice Association. I just feel like how we've managed to not nominate The Green Knight for anything is bad. It's a poor reflection on us, because that movie is incredible and everybody knows how incredible it is. It feels like we just forgot about it or most of the membership forgot about it. We got overrun by things like West Side Story and King Richard, which tremendously overrated movie. Really doesn't belong in a Best Picture race for my money. It's a rather, pedestrian sports movie. It's fine. Will Smith is great. It's a relatively pedestrian sports movie, if we're all going to be honest about it. But Nicolas Cage did get nominated for Pig. That was one of my picks, so that's good. Benedict Cumberbatch got nominated for Power of the Dog. Andrew Garfield got nominated for Tick, Tick, Boom. And I don't disagree with Will Smith getting nominated for King Richard. Great. Denzel Washington's great in The Tragedy of Macbeth, which we'll talk about just before Christmas. I do have a lot of arguments with the Best Actress nominees, because I didn't love The Eyes of Tammy Faye. I really, as we'll discuss later, I really hated Being the Ricardos. And I thought House of Gucci and Lady Gaga were desperately overrated. And especially in a year when we had Rachel said it in Shiva Baby, and we had Jodie Comer in The Last Duel. It's man, I hate it. I just hate that category a lot. I think what happened, and I don't have anything to back this up. I think a lot of people didn't know where to nominate Jodie Comer, whether it was for Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress. I think that was a little unclear, and I think The Last Duel people should have cleared that up a little bit better as to which category she was supposed to go in. I think they left that vague, and leaving that vague, I think a lot of people put her into Best Actress, and a lot of people put her into Best Supporting Actress, and I think that's how she ends up getting left out. Best Supporting Actor, a lot of things I don't agree with here, like especially Jared Leto in House of Gucci. I think that performance is basically a parody. I think it's a joke, and I hate that it was nominated. Jamie Dornan and Ciarán Hinds for Belfast, I can't argue with that. They're both very good in that movie, so that's fine. I understand why they're there. Troy Kotsur for Coda is a great choice. But then we nominated J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, which again I think is a terrible film. Then the West Side Story stuff, we'll get to West Side Story, but I don't see it as an awards movie. It's another one of those feel-good choices that a lot of people like. And I think this should go to a movie that people are, that is actually really very good, as opposed to one that we can all kind of agree on. That's really, one I was very impressed with was Mass. The movie Mass gets a nomination for Anne Dowd for Best Supporting Actress, a very deserved nomination, and it's great to see that everybody found that, because it's not an easy movie to find. Not a lot of people have seen it. And Kirsten Dunst for The Power of the Dog is great. I can't argue with that. She was fantastic in that movie. It's not one of my choices, but again, it was great. Ingenue Ellis is barely in King Richard, and that one bugs me to hell. She's barely in that movie, and we nominated her for Best Supporting Actress. Doesn't sit well with me. I'm being as honest. I probably shouldn't even be this honest as I am, but I'm being as honest as I possibly can be on this. I agree with everything in the Best Director race. Paul Thomas Anderson, even Kenneth Branagh, it's a well-directed movie. He's a terrific director. But Jane Campion, Guillermo del Toro, and Denis Villeneuve, all perfect choices. Spielberg, I can kind of argue against, but it's not. Again, people are going to start to think that I hate West Side Story. We'll get to that. I don't hate it. But we had 11 nominations for Belfast and 11 nominations for West Side Story. I didn't like that we had so many nominations for Dune, because I do think that when you look at the achievement of Dune overall, it deserves a lot of nominations. It's such a huge movie, and he did such an amazing job taking this huge thing and making it so relatable and commercial, but also artistic. He doesn't hold back on his theming and the way Denis Villeneuve creates a movie. He didn't compromise to make a blockbuster. He made a Denis Villeneuve blockbuster, and so Dune, I'm very proud to see, got 10 nominations.
Yeah, the thing with Dune is there's nothing lacking in it. When you can look at other movies like that are that big, Avatar, for example, where I just think the story sucks, but it's everything else is amazing about it. And so that's impressive there. But yeah, it's the art house stuff usually gets left behind a little bit, and that's just what it is. I mean, West Side Story, Spielberg, it's safe. So
yeah. And everybody hates Clayne Crawford, so I get it.
Right.
And nobody knows who Robert Machoyan is, and that's fine. I understand. They also didn't put on a campaign for it. That didn't help.
But The Green Knight was fucking awesome.
Oh my God, that bugs me so much. Like, I'm looking through the list, like, where is The Green Knight? How is it nowhere on this list? How is it we possibly didn't nominate The Green Knight for anything? And we didn't. Like, I keep looking, and it's not there. There's no Green Knight. Not even Best Cinematography. Didn't even get in there. It's maddening. The production design is a no. Editing is a no. Costumes is a no. I mean, visual effects is a no. I am blown away looking at this and not seeing anything for The Green Knight. That blows my mind.
Yeah, that's the A24 movie that makes the most sense. Like Lamb, I get. I love it, but it's its own. I get why people would go against it, but I don't get The Green Knight.
Way too divisive. I understand. But The Green Knight, I thought everybody had kind of coalesced around that one a little bit. I thought there was some momentum there. I thought that I still think that the Academy might rescue that movie because it is so incredible. Maybe, hopefully, if they're smart. But I hate that it wasn't. I hate that it wasn't nominated. It belongs on a list of the best pictures of the year.
And while I haven't seen House of Gucci, it seems like universally everybody understands The Last Duel's better. At least,
Yeah.
And everything about that, like all those nominations, throw them out and put The Last Duel people in.
Yeah,
as
there you
far
go.
as I'm concerned.
I can agree with that.
I mean,
I also
in terms
don't
of a
think
safe
that-
choice, at least.
Yeah. I also don't think that Nightmare Alley got nearly enough love. That movie, we'll talk about that, I think, next week,
I can't
is
wait to
a
see
must-see. It is a must-see film. And Don't Look Up did very well. I can be proud of that, that Don't Look Up did so well. We'll talk about that one a little bit.
All right. Well, let's share the screen for our YouTube viewers and get the regular part of the show started. We will start with Don't Look Up.
Yes, Don't Look Up, with an all-star cast headed up by Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, who play scientists who are, I guess, astronomers who work at a university, Michigan State, I think it is. Jennifer Lawrence is working the late nights on this big telescope that they have. This is looking deep into the solar system, and she sees something coming. She sees this thing that is about 3 months away, and it's this huge discovery. And so she calls all of her colleagues, and they all come in, and they're all looking at it. They're all patting each other on the back. It's amazing. They're going to name it for her because she's the one who found it. And as you can, it's so well crafted, this scene, as Leonardo DiCaprio is slowly doing the math and working it out, you see his face begin to turn. And obviously, you know what the premise of the movie is. You understand what the realization that he's about to have is that this comet is coming directly to Earth. It is a planet killer, and it is going to crush the entire planet. And his slow realization of that is a really remarkable scene, exceptionally well crafted by Adam McKay as he's putting that together. I really, really love that scene. That he has to break into Jennifer Lawrence that this is what's happening. And they have to immediately start contacting the government to try and get people involved. Actor Rob Morgan plays a guy who's actually the head of the Planet Defense System, which is a real thing. We have an actual planet defense system. I don't know if anybody has realized that. That's a real thing. And they get in touch with him, and they show him the numbers, and he believes them immediately. He's on board. He gets them to Washington the next day to meet with the president, who doesn't meet with them. She's too busy dealing with a Supreme Court nominee that she may or may not have been sleeping with, who is a complete disaster. and she's very concerned that she might not be able to get this guy on the Supreme Court. It's a very funny plot. When she enters the scene, it's her and Jonah Hill plays her chief of staff, and also her son, he's just the worst human being on the planet. And they couldn't be dealing with two worse people in a crisis at this moment, because as soon as they start to explain what's going on, these two immediately just start thinking about poll numbers and how will people take this? How's it going to affect the economy? Like, not about the fact that the world's going to end in 3 months. They're more concerned about how they're going to spin it properly. And that is the kind of thing that could spin into too much satire, like over the top stupidity. But it doesn't. Because it's Meryl Streep and it's Jonah Hill, and they're so professional and they're so good at making it both funny and terrifyingly real. Because you see the people that they're playing, you've seen them in real life. You've met these people in real life. You've seen them on the news and been blown away by how people could fail upwards to the highest, office in the land. And it's just the wrong people at the wrong moment in time. So they decide to take this to the media because the president wanted to keep it under wraps for now while they think of what they might want to do. They're concerned they may do nothing because they're concerned that the president might not even believe them, even though it's pretty much indisputable. Everybody else agrees. But, of course, the head of NASA is a very large donor rather than being a scientist. So instead of having an expert at NASA to help out, they just got somebody who paid a lot of money for their job. So they take it to the media. This is where Tyler Perry and Kate Blanchett come in as a pair of, a burlesque of Joe, Morning Joe guy and Mika Brzezinska, I think her name is, his co-host, and that is again just another dead end. They start telling them what's happening. This thing is coming to Earth in 3 months, and these two just want to make jokes about how handsome Leonardo DiCaprio is, and the reactions on social media are immediate. I don't believe this. This isn't real. They're making this up. Why is this guy lying? Why are they so boring? Why is she crying? They're making fun of them instead of actually listening to the fact that they've discovered this massive thing that's going to hit Earth in 3 months. And so it goes from there. This movie has beautiful echoes of Doctor Strangelove, and especially like the war room scene and just the worst of the dark comedy that Kubrick brought to Doctor Strangelove is available here. Adam McKay really goes there. He holds nothing back to the point where, and this movie is going to piss off a lot of people. The phrase "don't look up" comes to be something that the president says to try and keep people from realizing that they can actually see a comet coming to Earth. It's so beautiful. She's literally encouraging everyone to look down, and they've got hats that happen to be red that say "don't look up." Yeah, it's beautiful. I love this movie.
Do they acknowledge political parties, or you just figure it out on your own?
You kind of figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Now it's critically, I mean, it's rotten. It's 55%.
I don't get it. But then again, this is the kind of movie that you can't coalesce around. It's a movie that's going to divide people. It's not a movie that's going to satisfy all audiences. Adam McKay has gone there, and he seems unwilling to care about, trying to make this a both sides thing.
Yeah, and the audience score is 74, so that's not bad. I can't wait to see it. If nothing else, I know it'll satisfy, my hatred and whatever anger I try to not,
right.
Act on. It satisfies that need, and I enjoy that. Plus, I mean, he isn't always knocked out of the park, Adam McKay, when he does these, but when he does, I really like the big. What was it called?
The Big Short.
The Big Short.
Yeah.
I like
Vice
that
was a
quite
big
bit.
miss.
Vice
on the
was
same
a miss for me too.
And I was kind of worried that there were echoes of Vice in this, but then he chooses his gags so incredibly well. He chooses his characters incredibly well. Well, I've purposefully left out a character played by Mark Rylance, and I won't go any deeper than that. You have to see the movie to see his character and to see how his role plays out. It's very, very funny.
Well, and I do like they're not real people. It's Meryl Streep's not playing Trump, even if she is. It's I do like that it's a lot of made up stuff because I think that works better.
Yeah.
But I can't wait.
Jennifer Lawrence is great in this, and she's just so sad. It's so beautiful, and her relationship with Timothée Chalamet is just so dark and funny. I dig that. And then on the opposite side, DiCaprio and Blanchett have this very funny, very dark relationship as well. That is a whole other. Just so many elements of this movie. Ron Perlman has two of the best jokes in the entire movie. There's wonderfully visual jokes that are just so fantastic. And like I said, all savage. He's definitely he's very much a character out of Doctor Strangelove. Like I said, this movie for me compares on to Doctor Strangelove in the best possible way.
That's awesome. I really can't wait. It comes to Netflix December 24th. It's in theaters now. It looks amazing. I can't wait to see it. Oddly enough, it's the second worst reviewed movie of the week, according to critics. So
weird.
Yeah. So we'll get to all those here in a little bit. Let's go to one of the better reviewed movies of the week, Being the Ricardos.
Being the Ricardos stars Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball and Javier Bardem as Desi Arnaz in a story written by and directed by Aaron Sorkin. This tells the story of a week in the life of the I Love Lucy TV show. And this week is incredibly eventful because Lucy has testified before the House Un-American Activities Commission. She's had a bit of a misunderstanding where she may have had a communist tie some 20 years ago, and it could end her career, her television show, and her husband's career on top of it. So that's hanging over them. She's also just announcing to everybody that she's pregnant, which of course is going to play out on I Love Lucy, becoming the first, television character to portray pregnancy on screen, which is a pretty big thing. Desi's telling the network this week that we're doing this whether you like it or not. You can cancel the show or whatever, but we're putting this on television, that she's going to have the baby on TV and not hold a box in front of her for an entire season. I hate this movie. And I'll tell you, it's entirely about Aaron Sorkin. I'm a fan of what Aaron Sorkin does. Like, I love The Social Network, and I've seen every episode of The West Wing. I've come around on The West Wing as not being that great because I've been listening to a lot of different things and rewatching and reevaluating. So you can kind of see the strings getting pulled a little bit too much on that show sometimes. And here we get some of the worst of Aaron Sorkin. Lucille Ball and I Love Lucy, whether you've seen it or not, whether it's aged, but it is so funny at times. There are reasons why people still talk about the grape stomping scene or the skits that she did, the chocolates, all the physical comedy stuff that she did is still funny, regardless of the time. It's still funny, and she puts so much energy and life into doing it. And I don't care about what was real or not. Sorkin portrays Lucille Ball as Mark Zuckerberg or as President Bartlett, this humorless character for whom everything is genius. Everything is about their great genius, to the point where he portrays Lucille Ball as hating her own comedy, but also being great at it. So she hates what she does, but she's like this brilliant mathematician who can pull comedy from where no one else can see it. It is so annoying. They talk about the famous grape stomping scene in this movie, and the writers are breaking it down, trying to figure out what the punchline is going to be and how it's going to play out. And we cut to this close-up of Lucy just thinking about it. We cut to the scene. We see her stomping. We see her getting in. We see her identifying the woman in the peasant dress who's inviting her to come in and stomp the grapes. You see her figuring out what she's going to do once she's in there. She's going to do this little dance and smile, and it's going to be very funny, the physical comedy. Then the punchline is she's dropped her earring and she has to crawl through all the grapes to try and find it. And she does. They managed to take a scene that is one of the most iconic in television history, one that is beloved and remembered by millions of people, and make it completely unfunny. Because we know Lucy hated doing it, apparently, and she doesn't like it, and but she's a genius and everybody loves it. And she already knows before she's ever done it that everyone's going to love it. But even worse, have you watched The West Wing?
I've seen it. I wasn't a regular viewer, though.
There's a character on there named Joshua Lyman who is played by Bradley Whitford, who's one of people's favorite characters. He's a very good character in many ways. But he's Sorkin's insert character. He's the guy with all the answers. He's the guy who always has the funny joke to say. He's always, right on top of everything. There's a scene in this movie that I guarantee you is a scene that they have in The West Wing. And if I scrub through a season of The West Wing, I could find this plot. It has to do with Lucy, or it has to do with Desi telling the network that they're going to do the pregnancy thing, and that the sponsors are going to be on his side. And the network's like, no, they're not. They're going to pull. They're going to tell you can't do it. And he's very confident that they're going to do it. And it comes down to this annoying scene where, of course, he gets his way, and he's the brilliant genius. And then he walks away and he does a little dance. And it's like, oh my God, I know I could find Josh Lyman doing that exact same thing. And it just ruined the entire plausibility and believability of the character of Desi Arnaz, because regardless of whether he was the same kind of genius or the same kind of, the giant mind, the way that, Joshua Lyman was, he's not Joshua Lyman. He was never Joshua Lyman. He's not the Sorkin insert character, but you've given him a scene that is so much Aaron Sorkin that it takes you out of any possibility of believing that this character or this movie was anything like he's portraying it. It is irritating. I hate this movie. This movie is on my top 10 worst of the year list.
And these are the type of movies that I feel belong on their worst of the year list, because this is one where critics are praising it. Even the audience likes it that saw it, according to Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it, but I'd rather, if something like this misses, it's more of a miss for me than a Rob Schneider movie. I guess my question is this supposed to be historically accurate, or is this like The Social Network where it's Aaron Sorkin just telling a story?
I'm assuming it's like The Social Network. I don't know if there's any truth to it or not. I don't care, honestly. How you make I Love Lucy pretentious should be a strike against this movie, not a check in its favor.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if you're going to put... It's one thing to not like it, but then to have her be uber confident over it. If you're going to put a little self-doubt or something like that, or I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think of what you could do to make it work. But the fact that Aaron Sorkin, he kind of has a rhythm. He has a style, almost a cadence to his movies. I know we haven't really loved his directorial work. Much bigger fan of his writing, especially if a David Fincher there to, make one of the greatest movies of all time.
He needs an interpreter. He needs someone to pull the reins, and nobody's pulling the reins on this. This is full Aaron Sorkin. That's why it's hard to believe that any of this is true, is because the rhythm of it is so much Aaron Sorkin, and it doesn't feel authentic to Lucille Ball, or at least the Lucille Ball that we know from television, who, I don't know, maybe she did hate everything she did. Maybe she did feel like she wasn't enough of a feminist or enough of a maybe Lucy wasn't woke enough for her own time, maybe. But to have her, openly state that she knows that what she does is low comedy, or she has no pride in her work. She just happens to be this absolute genius who understands the audience better than anybody else and knows how to make them laugh with these stupid gags. It's downright hurtful to portray her in that way. Honestly, it really she may have been horrible. I don't know. Maybe Lucy was a horrible pure person. I don't know. But Lucy from television is something that I do have kind of a nostalgic remembrance of. And I'm not asking it to live up to exactly what I want of it, because Lucy herself didn't live up to exactly how I wanted her to be. But I've seen her in talk shows. She didn't seem like she hated everything that she did. She didn't seem like she was this overbearing, smug genius all the time. And that really sucks to portray her that way.
Now, I guess my next question is, if, say, you make this a fictional TV show and fictional characters, does it get better?
Yeah, I bet it would. I bet the timing of it would be more. I think it would be better. Honestly, yeah, I'm bringing a lot to the Lucy stuff on this. I think this is.
And I'm not blaming you for that. I think if you look at The Social Network, part of why that works is we knew the names of those guys. We didn't really know them at the time. We know more about them now than we did then. But that's why he could make up a story related to them. Plus, you had Fincher really pulling the strings properly. Even if you're bringing stuff to it, that's a mistake on his part. And as far as I'm concerned, I'll try to give it a shot. It comes out on Amazon December 21st. In theaters now, but yeah, 70% of Rotten Tomatoes isn't great. It's just okay. What do we got next? The third lowest rated movie of the week, National Champions, according to critics.
This is a really good movie. This is
I'm telling you right now, this is going to be like everything is like opposite of what I think you're going to say. It's just kind of fun.
This isn't a great movie. It's definitely got a lot of faults to it. It's got a lot of flaws to it. Especially when it comes to sports movies. This is a movie that's laying out the case for paying college football players. And granted, I'm on that side. I've always been on that side. It was preaching to the choir when it came to me, but nevertheless, I bought in. I thought I was really impressed by the main character here, played by Stephen James, who plays a world-class quarterback who is playing in the national championship game. It's his coach, J.K. Simmons' first opportunity to win a national championship. There's a lot of hype around the game, and he and his tight end played by Alexander Ludwig decide that this is the moment where they need to protest. They need to say, we're not going to play, and you can't make us play unless you're going to negotiate and give us what we want, which is pay for college players. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Alexander Ludwig's character is not somebody who's going to end up in the NFL. He's not going to go beyond college. He's coming out of college injured from 4 years of playing football, and he's returning home to parents who live in a trailer. He got a college education, which will help him, but he's going to be in pain for a lot of the rest of his life, and he gets no real compensation for that. And their stories like his, or even worse than his, of guys who are going back to nothing after spending 4 years in college and not making it to the NFL. So this guy is essentially, this character played by Stephen James is essentially using his power as the likely number one pick in the NFL to say, hey, you need, if you're going to make billions and billions of dollars off of this, you should give some of that back to the people who are actually sacrificing something for this. And that is something I can completely agree with. On top of which, I think this movie is relatively fair about that argument. It's not over the top laying that on as the only truth. There's a character played by Uzo Aduba who is the lawyer for the NCAA, and she's very compelling in her argument against it. She's not portrayed as this over-the-top, harridan who's trying to deny these people. She's kind of cruel in her tactics is what she's trying to get, but she's got a backstory behind her that makes sense. If the football players get what they want and they get paid, the likelihood is that the NCAA is not giving up their profits. What they're going to do is take that money from the girls' basketball, from the gymnastics team. They're going to take that from the swimming team. From every smaller sport will get smaller because the NCAA is not going to give up their profits from football. They're just going to take a portion of what's already there and shift it to the college football players. Now, there's an argument to say that these guys do grave harm to their bodies doing this and that they deserve to be paid. And I'm on that side. But this movie, I thought, was very fair in that portrayal. As far as problems go, there's a character played by Kristen Chenoweth who is the wife of the head coach, and she's having an affair that plays into the plot, but it can be entirely lifted out of the movie, and you wouldn't miss it. You wouldn't miss her character. Not that she's bad. It's just the character doesn't have enough behind her to justify her existence. And same kind of goes for a character played by Timothy Olyphant, but he does a little bit more. The plot does a little bit more to justify his existence than it does hers. And Jeffrey Donovan is in this movie, and he's such a great villain. He's such a snake, and you hate him. And he's so hateable, and I love how hateable he is. And you got Tim Blake Nelson in there as well, who's kind of playing another version of that that's both hateable but also kind of weirdly charming, even though he's such an asshole. And that's just the talent of Tim Blake Nelson. He's got one moment in Nightmare Alley next week that is even better. It's one of the best scenes of the entire year, and it's the only scene that he's in the movie.
That's awesome. I mean, this to me, and I haven't seen it, but it seems like a movie that should have gone to streaming, and it could have done very well because I would have watched it, whether it's HBO or Netflix or whatever. This is like the perfect movie to sit and watch at home. I don't know why you would need to see this in the theater, especially with the way the way movies are released it's changing. But I'm very interested in the subject matter. I don't know. I mean, it's complicated. It is. It's part of it. You do get a college education, but at the same time, your money's being made. So everybody who's involved in making the money should get a part of it, Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm definitely interested in it. And I'm sure when it is on Netflix or whatever other streaming platform it ends up on, I'll definitely watch it. But I don't get why you would go theatrical with this. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. When it's no longer like taboo to go to streaming anymore. It's just not like it was. So this would have been perfect for that if it were up to me, but whatever. How did it do you know?
Probably not very well. Yeah. I'm just guessing it because it didn't get a very good promotion. And I do, when you talk about it going straight to streaming, I do wonder if there is ever going to be like a movie that speaks out this much against the NCAA. Like Amazon's already kind of got to deal with college football. They weren't probably going to touch a movie like this. Yeah. I don't know if Netflix has any designs on any sports in the future. They might, and if they did, obviously, the NCAA is not going to deal with STX Entertainment anytime soon if they had anything to do with them before.
Well, what happened to that? There was it a Will Smith concussion movie a few years back, and they actually didn't they actually even get involvement with the NFL a little bit? I
don't.
I feel like the real teams were on there, so they would have had to.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I don't remember. No, because of my own concussions.
Yeah, but that is a good point. Didn't really think that angle. Maybe ESPN could get it.
I think ESPN legitimately turned down a movie exactly like this.
I'm surprised they wouldn't have done a 30 for 30 or something like that on this very topic. Or you couldn't really do 30 for 30, but you could do some sort of documentary on it.
They've done some news stories on it, but you know which side of the fence ESPN is on that one. They're not going to piss off the NCAA.
Well, they're definitely not going to stand.
That $18 billion is some of their money.
Yeah, but I mean, the NFL has that, if not more, and they're paying their. I don't know. It's stupid.
That's a professional job.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. We don't need to have the argument. One movie that did go straight to streaming, The Unforgivable, starring Sandra Bullock.
Yes, The Unforgivable stars Sandra Bullock as a woman who is just getting out of prison. She's several years earlier involved in an incident where a police officer was shot and killed, or a sheriff was shot and killed, trying to evict her and her sister from their home. And she spent the last 20 or so years in jail. She gets out of jail and she wants to reunite with her sister, who was only 5 years old when this incident occurred, which does lead you to wonder exactly how old was Sandra Bullock's character supposed to be in this movie.
Yeah, I definitely. How old is she now? I mean, I know she's 57 in real life. I mean, she definitely could have been anywhere from. I mean, I did have that question as well, but yeah, it was. I don't think she was playing 37.
It seemed like just the situation would mean that she had to have been, I don't know, much younger. I guess maybe she could have been in her late 20s. I guess I could buy.
I could buy that. I could buy that.
It's not like a Ben Platt in Dear Evan Hansen situation. It's not. She's much better at the movie's slightly better at playing it off, so you don't necessarily linger on the question. It just kind of occurred to me as I was describing it.
And it happens because she's such a big star. For the most part, you probably have access to her age and all that stuff. So that's why we're asking the question. More so, if it was a throwaway actress that we didn't know, it would play a little differently, I think. But anyway, go ahead.
She gets out of jail. She wants to reunite with her sister. She's got to go through several different layers in order to get there. This is a mess. This movie's a mess. It's a complete mess. There's several different movies happening within this movie. The whole it's misery porn for a while. We're just, because everybody's just taking a giant dump on her to the point where you're just wondering if the plot is just building towards her killing herself. I mean, it's so miserable from beginning to end. It's just so miserable. She gets no joy out of anything. And granted, yes, I know there's a lot of people out there who say, well, she murdered a police officer, she doesn't deserve anything. And I guess the movie's trying to make sort of an argument that she's still a human being and she's still alive and she still deserves, some sort of human compassion, but it doesn't do a very good job of it. It doesn't give her a quiet moment somewhere where she gets to find something that she likes. Because the movie goes about giving her that a little bit and then taking it away in the worst possible way through a character played by John Bernthal, I think it is, who becomes sort of a love interest and then becomes something other than that very quickly. This movie is a mess. Viola Davis is in this, and her character. Why do you hire Viola Davis to play an entirely extraneous character and give her nothing to do? She's Viola freaking Davis. Don't hire her to do nothing. Don't hire her to hang around in the background or drive Sandra Bullock somewhere. She's Viola Davis, damn it. We've got Vincent D'Onofrio in this movie who's fine. But having him and her be so tangential to the plot, while you have these two parents who brought up her sister, who raised her sister, those two characters are played by vaguely recognizable actors from television. When you have Viola Davis and Vincent D'Onofrio right there, switch those roles, man. Switch them around.
Yeah, I could see that working better.
Then you got this subplot about the sons of the guy she killed, and those two guys are two of the most unmemorable actors you could find in, again, another one of the more important roles in the movie. Just a complete mess.
Yeah, this was weird because I watched it in a state of utter exhaustion, so there was no critical eye watching it. And when it was over, I liked it quite a bit, and I'm like, but I felt like this is kind of how I felt like at the end of American History X, or something like that. That's definitely very Hollywood, doing enough to the misery porn that gets you to feel bad for it. And there's stuff I still like. The John Bernthal stuff I think is very real, so I don't mind that part of it. I actually prefer that to something that's more Hollywood and fake. But there's enough of that where they're definitely setting up to feel worse, so because they keep beating it down so much that I get why you say what you said there, because they give her a little bit and take it away in the worst way possible. Which, again, I think if that was the only thing, if you focus more on that and kind of let some other stuff go, maybe it would work. Again, I still watched it in a state of utter exhaustion, so I liked it quite a bit, but it definitely reminded me of movies like A Time to Kill was another one that probably isn't the best critically great movie, but it's very safe and straight ahead, and you have the Hollywood just the cheats to get you to feel a certain way, when in those Pretty Cancer movies, that kind of stuff. That's present in this movie. And I couldn't tell you what it was, because again, I liked this movie, but I just feel like I was duped a little bit, and so I am kind of. And when I look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores, critics 40%, audiences 86%. This is one of the highest audience movies of the week. So that totally makes sense to my theory, which it was fun to go back and analyze the way I viewed the movie from that point of view, and it makes me feel more like, okay, I get, your state of mind can affect a movie so easily. And I kind of appreciate, that how I can be wrong, know I'm wrong, and still like something within the moment. And my wife didn't watch it with me or anything. This is the type of movie my wife would love. And I knew that. And so it was just kind of, I don't know, it was just kind of a neat looking at it from that angle, which probably means nothing to our listeners. But I enjoyed that part of breaking down my opinion.
The John Bernthal character bugged me because he's such a typical character for a movie like this. Like, this character is always in this movie. He's that guy that she doesn't want to talk to, but he's going to wear her down, and then maybe it could get good. But then it was interesting the way that they kind of divided them up a little bit. That was interesting. But the scene where he's trying to explain himself didn't work for me. And then the idea, though, that he didn't know what he was dealing with, because they're working together at this fish market. This fish market, we're told early on, has a habit of hiring ex-cons. Like, they hire ex-cons a lot. So for him to just assume that she wasn't one didn't make sense to me. Like, I would think that would be one of the first conversations he has, considering that neither of them are allowed to be around other ex-cons for very long, or at least have personal relationships with them. I think that would have been one of the first things he asked instead of one of the last, not realizing it. I just felt like that didn't ring true at all.
I mean, I get why you would say that, but at the same time, I would put a character like John Bernthal's to definitely view women as, not impurposely, but not. He would probably never consider her the next con because she's a woman. I could see his character thinking that way, but again, none of it was. enough to, and I will agree with the part where he goes to kind of explain himself. In another movie, they find a way to get together. And I like that this movie doesn't go there, but you don't need that scene. It was enough, leave it where they walked away, and it was.
Yeah, because it added nothing. Even that explanation, it added nothing to the movie.
It just wanted to make him a little less bad, which is unnecessary.
Because it has nothing to do with the rest of the plot. He doesn't play a role. He again, you're not using your John Bernthal right. You're not using your Viola Davis right. You're not using your Vincent D'Onofrio right. Vincent D'Onofrio is a character who just facilitates things. That's it. That's all he does. He's trying. Vincent D'Onofrio is a charming actor. He's a very good actor. But you give him a role where he's just facilitating for other actors. That's not the best use of his talent. You're not giving him anything to do. Why did you hire him? Right. Even bigger question, why did you hire Viola Davis to be Sandra Bullock's driver for a scene? Like, that's basically the biggest scene she has in the movie.
Yeah, and in hindsight, looking back at it, because it was Vincent D'Onofrio and Viola Davis playing that couple, I cared more about that part of the movie, but that part of the movie is so small that, I guess they do elevate those roles, but they didn't need elevating. And really, they didn't have to be. You could have kind of redone that altogether, and not
get rid of that whole plot. Bulldoze the house. Bulldoze it. Get rid of the entire. You don't need the house. Bulldoze the house. You've got her remembering shit. Which, by the way, again, just another bad screenwriter's trope of the sister character just kind of vaguely having these pieces of her memory reoccur to her. Is such a cliche. It's such a screenwriting cliche that they fall back on too much. This movie didn't need that either, but it didn't need the house at all. It would have been more poignant to have bulldozed that house and have her find her lawyer another way. She finds her lawyer because she goes back to the house where this incident happened, where this police sheriff got killed. And she goes back there, and it's now owned by Vincent D'Onofrio and Viola Davis. And
then it becomes
that's how she meets her lawyer.
And then it's
very incredibly convenient. And incredibly just out of left field, just not necessary to the story at all. Bulldoze the house, give her one poignant scene of looking at where it was, and move on. Far more effective.
What about the plot twist, if you will? Thoughts on that? Make it worse, better, worse, indifferent?
Oh, yeah, no, indifferent. Yeah, that didn't really... I couldn't honestly remember what the twist was there for a moment because it was not well set up at all. I mean, it's intended to be this moment that makes you gasp, but like it was far better without the twist, honestly. It made her character seem that much more, had more depth. It seemed like a convenient thing to try and make her more likable when it's more challenging for her to have been somebody who, in that situation, what happened? It was more interesting the other way.
Yeah.
It feels like a pulled punch to do that twist.
I get that. For me, it was more of a, yeah, it does. It's a pull punch on the character, but it does put you in a situation where all of a sudden now you can relate to the character. Like, oh my God, how do you get out? But again, it relies on a lot of convenience and a lot of people not doing their job though, as well. Yes. And because of, the sheer exhaustion, watching the movie with my head as off as it could be, it worked. But
so you recommend this movie?
There's a certain audience. They're not listening to our podcast, but there's an audience for this movie. As
liberal wine moms.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. Hell,
there are.
Even I could see even like conservative people, especially with the punch they pull at the end, getting into this movie too, because they pulled a punch if you're going to go that route of the movie. I don't know, the whole thing. I was more interested in this conversation because I knew I was wrong and I knew the feeling I had was not right.
Yeah,
but I was looking forward to talking about it. The Humans.
The Humans stars Richard Jenkins, Amy Schumer, Stephen Yeun, Beanie Feldstein, June Squibb, and Jane Howdy Shell as the adaptation of a play by the director, Karam. Stephen, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Karam. And he's adapted this play here about a family getting together for Thanksgiving. Stephen Yeun is this new introduction to the family. He's going to be the husband of Beanie Feldstein's character. He's kind of getting introduced to their family dynamic really for the first time, which includes an elderly grandmother played by June Squibb who has dementia and has some very disturbing spells. Amy Schumer's character is a very put upon daughter who's got a lot going on. She's just lost her job, and her girlfriend, her parents are not particularly happy with her having come out as gay. So there's a lot of tension there. Richard Jenkins seems to be having a true existential crisis, as if his life is really about to end at any moment, it would seem, just from the way he carries himself, like he's just so downtrodden. Matt Zoller-Seitz wrote something about this that I think you'll like. In the RogerEbert.com review, he compared this to Hereditary without the big horror scares, and he's not wrong. This movie, like this apartment that they're in New York City, does have its own very unique architecture that does, and the lighting and the camera work kind of treat this like a horror film in many ways. And I love the aesthetic there. It kind of reminded me of another movie that not a lot of people have seen called Shiva Baby, which was a comedy, but was played with a horror score. This beautiful, brilliant horror score that underlined the terror that the character felt throughout, her anxieties, coming at her from around all corners. Darkly humorous, but also kind of makes you hold your breath while you're watching a comedy. And this is the kind of movie that'll make you catch your breath while you're watching what appears to be just your average family drama. It's a small apartment, but it has 2 floors, which is I don't know how that goes in New York, whether or not that's considered large or not. It looks very small though in the way he films it. It's also unfurnished, so there's this empty quality. There's plenty of space for people to be in. And even in this small space, he manages to get each of these characters alone for a moment. And you can still hear all the noise in the background. You can hear people talking downstairs. You can hear the neighbor upstairs dropping things. But you're still alone with these people. And it's as if they're each in a box alone and very terrified and anxious about that. And it's incredible, really, the way this movie kind of gets to you, the way it uses the architecture. And for a guy who's he's a first-time director, he's a playwright, and he's directed plays, but this is his first film direction. He did an incredible job using his space incredibly well. They found this perfect spot to film this decaying apartment that is probably an economic drag on both her and her husband, but they just don't want to be in Scranton. So they live here instead. I really dug this movie. This is a really smart, sharp movie.
I got part way through, but it was a very exhausting week for me. And I wanted to experience this with a fresh head because unlike The Unforgivable, a movie like this probably won't work when you're tired. There's not enough to. I really wanted to experience for what it was.
It's a very quiet movie. I could have used more of an underscore to kind of keep it, because at times it does not drag, but there are moments where you're kind of having to lean in a little closer because there's not a lot going on, which is not a bad thing, but it does. I can see where this definitely loses a lot of audiences. I can definitely see why this wasn't nominated for awards, because not every audience is going to be as patient as you need to be with this movie.
Yet it was the second highest reviewed movie of the week.
Critics are notably patient.
Yes. Another highly rated A24 film by critics is Red Rocket, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And the worst A24 movie of all time, somehow. I like being the Ricardos. I hated this movie. And I also hated the way people explained it afterwards to me. Simon Rex plays a former adult film actor who returns to his small hometown in Texas to be with his ex-wife, who's also herself former adult film actress. They went there together to be in adult films. She came back much earlier after having a much worse experience than he did. He comes back because he wanted to, but because he just lost everything in a really stupid fashion because he's not a very smart character. He talks his way into the house of his wife and his mother-in-law, and they let him stay there. And this character is so obnoxious. It's really like somebody made an art film out of an Adam Sandler movie. The way this guy is just so over the top, hateful and obnoxious and completely unaware of other people. There's no redeeming quality about him. The rest of the plot has him kind of worming his way back into his wife's good graces and even getting into bed with her. And then he meets a 17-year-old girl named Strawberry, who he feels could get him back into the adult film business because she's so attractive and naive and malleable. She could be taught how to do sex properly and well on camera. And so he begins to groom her, and that's the rest of the plot, is him grooming her to go to Los Angeles with him to do adult films. The way this was explained to me afterwards, because I watched this thing just a full-on fucking hate watch throughout the entire movie, and then afterwards it was explained to me that I should have been paying attention to what's on the television in the background. And what's on the television in the background is the 2016 election. And basically what I'm told, and I don't buy this, but I'm told that the arc of Simon Rex's character is essentially Donald Trump. He's essentially, or a Trump voter, the kind of person who could have been convinced to vote for Donald Trump. That's what I'm supposed to take away from this, is that these are the people that would be taken advantage of by that criminal Donald Trump. And I hate that. I hate that so much. That is such the worst part of the left is this type of insulting narrative. I'm not saying that you have to be kind to people you disagree with, especially those who are completely wrong and going out of their way to be wrong. I'm not saying you have to be kind or respect them, but this is so to the other side of that. It's so just insulting if that's the case, that it just makes me hate the movie even more and not appreciate that this is supposed to be, comedy about, I don't know, the extreme right wing or whatever, or a Donald Trump like, see how Donald Trump he's a terrible person, but he kept rising and rising and things kept going right for him and going his way and going the way he wanted to, even as he did all these horrible things. That's the comparison. I've spoiled the movie for you guys. Sorry. That's what they're going for, apparently, is that he's essentially Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's kind of weak. Yeah, I mean, when you said art house Adam Sandler film, at least that I could get behind the attempt.
I would encourage you to watch this. Maybe you'll see it differently than I did. I'll
give it a shot. A24. I love them, and I like to, even the one like Free Fire you hated, but I was like, I get it a little bit. I don't have a problem with it. It's definitely forgettable, and I'm definitely bringing my A24 love to it. And I'm very proud that I haven't hated an A24 movie yet. But
this is worse than Free Fire. This is worse than Free Fire for sure. I just like the whole grooming the 17-year-old girl thing. People are just assuming that I'm somehow a moralist or something, that I'm morally opposed to the way that character is portrayed, because she's portrayed very sexually. I believe she has even a nude scene in the movie, and it's not a moral objection. It's an objection to the fact that those scenes, I guess they're intended to be exploitational, but they're also, it's like, it feels even creepier though. Like, I get that there's a fine line. Malcolm Gladwell did this podcast years ago for one of his podcasts where he talked about satire, and he talked about how satire can be very easily misunderstood. It's a razor thin thing. Like conservatives began to like Steve the joke. And I think that this is a movie that crosses that line from being satirical into being like, you can't tell where the line is on the joke. Is Sean Baker a total creep who's enjoying putting this young girl in these situations? Or is this satire? I'm willing to assume it's satire, but it's not very good satire because he takes her to a strip club at one point, and the movie lingers on that. And then they have sex in a truck outside the strip club, and the movie lingers on it and makes her a very sexual, exploitative figure. And I understand that's what the character of Simon Rex is doing, but I just didn't feel like the camera needed to do that too. Maybe they're trying to implicate us in sexualizing her. Fine, but I just wasn't feeling it. I felt like that was a step too far.
I hate when movies try to implicate the audience. I think it's lazy and stupid. Implicating why doing what it is that you're trying to.
Like, hey, creep, look at this beautiful naked woman, creep. Look closer, creep. Look closer, creep. Okay, I get it. I'm a creep. I like her too. She's very attractive.
Yeah, that's... And I don't know. I will watch it. I'm curious. It'd be nice to be able to bring something to it that maybe hasn't been talked about, but there's definitely things that have gone on. I mean, we've talked about, I don't know. We don't even need to go off on it, but there's just things that make me uncomfortable anymore. And people that I agree with, there's just a level of hatred that I don't like. I'm all for no respect, but hate is such a problem right now that we need to somehow get away from.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
This is going to be my villain origin story for when I turn to the right. It's going to be see, this is where it started. Sean became everything he hated. Can't see that the grooming the 17-year-old movie it wasn't that bad. He's a moralist. He's a right wing.
All right, up next, The Hating Game.
The Hating Game is way better than Red Rocket. It's a low bar for me, man. I wasn't going to watch this movie. This is just your very basic, like kind of an R-rated Lifetime movie. It's a romantic comedy. Here's the thing. I watched Nightmare Alley and The Tragedy of Macbeth, and I watched The Lost Daughter. And that was like a 24-hour period for me. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I need to relax. Here's this really stupid looking movie. Let's watch that. And so that's the mindset that I took into The Hating Game. Lucy Hale plays a person who works in a publishing house. She works in the same office as Austin Stoll's character, and they hate each other. He's been brought into the company by Corbin Burnson, who's kind of taken over part of the country. Like, he's got half the company, and her boss has the other half of the company, and so they've forced to work together. It's one of those jobs in publishing that it feels good in a Lifetime movie, and as long as you're vague, you don't have to explain what the job is. Like, is she an editor? Is she an assistant to the CEO? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Not the point. The point is that these two people are very beautiful, and watching them fall in love is fun. This movie is a dessert. It's pure sugar chocolate movie. There's no brain involved. You watch this thing entirely passively, and you just occasionally you just go, oh. And you know what? After watching the movies that I watched, and I loved those movies I'm talking about. I really Nightmare Alley is amazing. The Tragedy of Macbeth it's Shakespeare done by a Coen brother. Yeah, with Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. Yeah, brilliant. And The Lost Daughter, my God, I can't wait to talk about that next week. It's a challenge. It's a challenging movie. So I needed this. It's such a dumb name and it's such a dumb concept. But Lucy Hale is very sweet, very funny. She and Austin Stoll have the kind of chemistry that Lifetime movies would live for. It's fine. Go see it. Watch it. It's good.
Yeah, much like Red Rocket, the critics and audiences loved this.
Well, critics liked it. I'm shocked.
Yeah, they liked it more than Don't Look Up and Being the Ricardos, according to Rotten Tomatoes.
Good.
and good. National champions.
Well, it deserves it. It's actually it's a fun romantic comedy. It's very sweet film.
But the best reviewed audience and critically is West Side Story, the Steven Spielberg remake.
Yes, West Side Story is a remake of the 1961 movie by Robert Wise, choreographed by Jerome Robbins, of course, an adaptation of a Broadway play. Set in New York City in the post-World War II period, where the city is being torn down and rebuilt in a whole new way. In amidst that destruction are these two street gangs, the Jets and the Sharks. The Jets and the Sharks hate each other because of racism. Straight up racism. It's just a pure racial hate. This is a movie that has like echoes of The Great Replacement, which is a horrific concept that I urge you to look up so you can just be aware of it and be aware what the truly extreme right wing is saying right now. Puerto Ricans are moving into this neighborhood and they're taking away all the businesses and all the jobs is the thing here. What struggles with this movie and what keeps it from being a great movie is partly the racism, which I'll get to, but also the fact that it's just screamingly inessential. Like, there's no reason to make this movie. I know that Spielberg is kind of going for this very soft, both sides political view here in this movie, and it doesn't land quite well for me. Mostly because he's being fair to people who are just outright, blatantly hateful racists. He's trying to be fair and wring pathos from them. Now, I gave this movie a very positive review because it is a popcorn movie. It is a likable movie. The songs are great. The songs are iconic. You've heard these songs, many of them, without having seen this movie. Without having seen the 1961 movie, you know these songs. They've seeped into your pop culture memory well, beyond your will. There's no keeping them out. They're that great. The choreography is incredible. There's the scene America. The song America is sung here and performed extraordinarily well. I can't fault either Rachel Zegler or Ansel Elgort for their performances. It's a very romantic, doomed relationship. It's beautiful. And Rita Moreno is wonderful in the movie. But it is screamingly inessential. There's no reason to have done this. There's no reason that West Side Story 2021 needs to exist. And so that, for me, just kind of makes it very basic, more of a popcorn movie. But if you dig in too deep in this, and I kind of did after I finished my review, like, the elements of the race stuff is very poorly done. This portrays Puerto Rican men as all of them are angry, all of them want to fight all the time. And I know we can't say it's a referendum on all Puerto Rican people, and it's not intended to be, but they don't do a very good job of developing those characters. They don't hire actors who are very, aside from maybe Daniel Alvarez, who gets the most screen time, those characters are very underwritten. As are the Jets to a point too. They're much more underwritten as well. But I don't see, there's nothing redeeming about the Jets, and so the tragedy doesn't quite land. Because they're very racist, and in the end, they're almost rapists. In the near end of the movie, they're almost rapists on top of being racist. And the movie doesn't do a good job with that. It doesn't want to go there because this is a popcorn movie and not an art film. I get it. They're just trying to make you smile, and it does a good job of making you smile.
Yeah, the problem with the both sides stories is you got to find... You can do the both sides stuff, but you got to pick the right stuff. Like, you don't defend the racism, you defend something else. So they're not right on that part at all. They're really, I mean, how do you? That doesn't make any sense. I didn't like the original West Side Story. Part of it, though, is me not being a musical fan. So I did not see this. Like, even Spielberg, as much as you can't say he's not a great director, but I also think he's a very safe director for the most part. He has some fantastic movies, but he also does a lot of middle-of-the-road stuff. And I don't think he challenges himself enough. He does a lot of safe pictures, I think, but he does them really well.
Yeah.
But
if you want to, I'm the wrong person to talk about the racism of this movie. I would say that there's a person on Twitter who I like a great deal, who's done a great job of highlighting Puerto Rican critics who have written about this movie and talked in depth about the racial aspect of this that does need to be addressed. It's a Latinx lens. And I would urge you to check that out and check out her Twitter feed, especially where she's been sharing reviews of this movie that do give you a fuller breadth. Like there's critics who really appreciate a lot about this movie, but they want people to talk about this aspect. It's very much easy to paint over that suspect. Oh, that's not what the movie's intended to be about. But I mean, it's there. You included it. The Jets' motivation is that they're racists, that they are a racist street gang, that they want to kill Puerto Rican people. The Puerto Rican people want to kill them. So again, that's your both sides of it. Well, they're just as bad. They want to kill the white people just as much as the Puerto Ricans want to kill and that's the both sides thing I'm talking about. And
right.
Really, the Jets side is not a both sides for me. They're wrong. The Jets are wrong.
Right. Yeah. Let's move on to our undisputed classic because we've run a little long, and we'll talk about Moulin Rouge.
Moulin Rouge stars Ewan McGregor as a writer who moves to France to write about love because he's obsessed with love, and he kind of falters into this friendship with John Leguizamo playing Toulouse-Lautrec, and of course his group of people who hang out at the Moulin Rouge, which was a real club in Paris at the turn of the century. Nicole Kidman is the star there. She's the bright, shining attraction everywhere. And the romance is going to develop between them as they're putting this play together, but there's also a character played by Richard Roxburgh, who is the villain. He's the Duke, who's paying for the entire production that they're putting on, and he obviously who wants to have Nicole Kidman for himself, and he assumes that he can just have her because she's a sex worker. She's a courtesan. So she and McGregor try to have their romance in the background and keep it from him, and that's kind of the tension of the whole thing. This is directed, of course, by Baz Luhrmann, and it has incredible music and incredible choices. The medleys in this movie are really brilliant. The layering of the way he layers in familiar pop songs and certain original beats, and just very well crafted as a musical. It's so well put together in that way, especially for me. I can't not get emotional when I'm watching that Roxanne scene. The way that singer steps forward and just belts out the Roxanne, like that gets me every time. And they turn that into this dirge. This song is incredibly well known. It's very popular, but he turns it into this operatic dirge and balanced against Ewan McGregor's desperate sadness in that moment. It is so tragic. It's got so much power behind it, and then they've choreographed this large tango to it that is incredible. I've always loved this movie. It was one of my favorite movies of the year it came out, and I'm still a huge fan of this movie.
And you said something on the Bonus Beatles podcast about how people who hate the Beatles, it defines who they are, and I don't want that to be about me in musicals. So I'm very aware of anything that I don't like. It's just me not opening myself up to it. Like I was annoyed by the use of popular music, and it shouldn't be. It's stupid that I was, and I can't not be. I don't know why, but it's just something that takes me out of the movie. But I'll fully admit I'm wrong in that. It's just kind of an instinctive thing, and I don't like it. What I do really love about this movie, and it's the box I want to put Nicole Kidman in. This character is not in that box, so it's amazing for me to see her like that. I mean, I know she's one of the greatest actresses out there. So she always takes risks, sometimes fails when she does it, but she's never afraid to fail, and that's what's really cool about her as an actress. And I thought her performance was amazing here. And a lot of it is me holding her down as an actress, wanting her to be a certain thing, which she's always something different. But here she's so not what I'm used to her being or wanting her to be that I just can't help but think she's amazing in this movie.
I think what people would assume of a role like this is more of a Madonna type. You know, is that kind of sass, that kind of sassy sexuality. And you don't think Nicole Kidman can do that. And then she does it. She's really great at it. She reminded me a lot of Marilyn Monroe, the best of Marilyn Monroe. That's what I was really getting out of this. And I would never have said that about Nicole Kidman ever, that she could compare to Marilyn Monroe. They're very different, seemingly different types of actresses. But this is the kind of movie that Marilyn Monroe would have excelled at.
But yeah, she's just phenomenal. But I just can't fairly talk about it otherwise because I'm just not into musicals. And then when you I'm like the guy who doesn't like Weird Al that much because it's just like, well, I mean, it's just making fun of popular songs. How hard is that?
Yeah.
And again, it's not something I live and die on. I just, when people bring it up, I just kind of walk the other way. You know, Star Wars is where I live and die, and that's where I've defined my hate. But yeah. I'm neither here nor there. I'm just not. It's not of interest to me, and I am glad though that this is opening me up because like when we watch Chicago, I can at least recognize the genius of it. It just still not for me, but I can see why it works, and even here I get why it works. The fact that it's popular music that they worked into it is just a stupid rule that I've made up, and you know that I'm not allowing the movie to have, and it's not fair to the movie, and it's just stupid. But
you're not alone in that. A lot of people hate what's so-called jukebox musicals, where people take well-known songs and make them part of their musical. There's a lot of people who just define themselves by hating that. Like, that's not original. That's not Broadway. And I okay, well, fine. But I thought that he changed these songs in such unique ways. Like I mentioned, Roxanne is such a beautiful choice. The way he uses that, the way he uses your song to develop the plot and to be this kind of the spine of the story early on is very beautiful to me. It helps that I really like those songs too. I liked every song that he talks about in the movie, every song that they perform. I'm a huge fan of. So it was certainly preaching to the choir with me in that way.
Well, at the same time, the fact that I like those songs too, it's the polar opposite effect. And again, I'm fully admitting to being wrong here. So it's like that's what probably making this podcast a little more boring the last few years. I'm definitely more critical of my opinions. I'm always beating them down and trying to explain where they're coming from. It's an instinctive thing, and I don't want it. No art should be held down by somebody else's opinion, and I fully admit to being wrong. It's just not for me, and I fight it. Maybe I need to watch it again now that I got it out of my system. You know, everything that bugs me about it, and maybe I'll enjoy it for what it is the next time. But
I think you need to be a little less hard on yourself, though, too. I mean, you've been incredibly open on this show. You and I have gone to places on this show that no one else would go there. Not that we're the bravest podcast in the world, but I'm saying that, like, for two straight white guys to go where we go sometimes, I think is pretty impressive. But also just the movies that you watch that immediately someone might assume that you're going to hate. You've been very open to watching those and taking in experiences that you normally wouldn't.
Oh yeah, Les Mis, La La Land. There's definitely been movies that I didn't think I would like, or even, I'll never be able to like Les Mis as much as you do because it's not. I can't open my mind up enough for it. But it's expanding more and more every time you go down those, to a movie that you don't want to give a chance. Classic films specifically, there's a lot of homework that ended up not being homework that I'm very happy about. But no, I don't know. I've also enjoyed, and maybe it's not for the listeners, but it is fun for me to kind of unwrap why we feel a certain way about things. And even when I know you're not going to feel it, when you're going to feel a certain way, is to pull up what other critics say and try to see where you're coming from too. And I don't know. To me, it's fascinating. Maybe it's not to the listeners. I apologize if it's not, but it's something I enjoy.
If you come this far, I think you got to be into it. These are our people. They're there.
Yeah. But no, I get why this works. Similar to Chicago, it is very watchable in nature, and Nicole Kidman just proves again why she's one of the best out there, and not just her. The whole cast is believable and it works. Everything that doesn't work is my viewing opinion. 1991, Hook and The Last Boy Scout came out. We've talked about a lot of movies so far. I don't know if you have anything you want to talk about on those two, but otherwise,
I don't hate Hook as much as other people do. I don't think I do anyway. I don't remember. I keep forgetting if I like it or not, so that's probably not a good thing in the movie's favor. But still, I think I like it a little bit more than other people. I think it's handsomely mounted. I thought Robin Williams was a perfect choice to play the character, especially the way that I think people are so used to the Peter Pan story told in such a specific way that when you go out of your way to tell it a completely different way, the way he did, it's a very different way of telling that story. I was impressed by it, at least the boldness of it. And I love Julia Roberts' performance in that movie. Yeah. I thought she was so cute in that role. She brought such heart to that. And I think that gets left behind in the fact that she was, such a big star in such a small role. I think that overshadowed the movie.
Yeah, for sure. And Last Boy Scout I refuse to watch because I don't want to ruin that opinion I had when I was a kid. Loved it then. I know I'm not going to like it now, so why?
It's so dumb, but I can't help but love it. I only watched that movie so many times as a kid. That stupid scene at the start where the guy's running down the field with the football and just pulls out a gun and shoots a guy. It's such a dumb scene.
It's so badass so cool. When you're 13.
It really is.
The difference between me and you is I've only watched it a handful of times, so I'm not I won't be able to have the Rocky IV, Heat, movies that I've watched a million times, Demolition Man, where I'm just going to love it. And even though I know it's stupid, I've only seen this movie 3 times, and all before like the age of 16. So,
I used to be a big fan of David Wayans. So he's gotten a little weird the last few years. So I've not paid much of attention to him, but. I just think him and Willis together, they're very funny in that movie. And the scene with the bunny puppet kills me every time. It gets me every time. It's so stupid, but it's so fun. You can just tell like Bruce Willis is having so much fun, and it's poignant now because he doesn't seem to have any fun at all today.
Yeah, and you hear that a lot from people about him. Yeah. That is our show. Next week we got Spider-Man No Way Home, The Novice, Nightmare Alley. I gotta make myself get to the theater for that one. Swan Song on Apple TV, Juice World Into the Abyss, HBO Max. Then you said The Lost Daughter. Is that next week as well?
I think so. Netflix has me so confused on when they're going to release things. It might not even be till January for all I know, but
it wasn't on your list. We'll put that as a maybe. Our classics, The Night of Kiberia. Is that how it's pronounced? Yeah,
Knights of Kiberia is a movie that's getting a re-release, not nationally, but like in a limited re-release, but they've done a whole new thing of it. And it's one of the few Fellini movies that I've never seen. So, and plus, just how often do we get the chance to talk about Fellini?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Have we done a Fellini movie on the show? It's possible we did. It's just way back there.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just want to be pretentious in a different way than Aaron Sorkin is. I promise not to be smug in my pretension.
Right. And then next week, Proves Why 1991 Sucks, as it was probably one of their big weeks of that year, and it was Bugsy, Father of the Bride, and JFK.
That is some high-range garbage.
Yeah. Movies I will not be watching, although I've never seen Bugsby, but Warren Beatty has not fared well on this show.
He really hasn't. I hate shampoo. Still, to this day.
Yeah. We have gone a little long, but let's do a quick round of flick chart if you're all right with that.
Yeah.
All right. Dog Day Afternoon, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring.
That's a really great movie. I mean, you haven't seen it, so we can skip it. It's fine.
Okay. Well, I was going to let you pick otherwise, but since you said that, I'll skip it. Dog Day Afternoon or Elysium?
Dog Day Afternoon.
Very easy. America's Sweethearts, Rudy.
America's Sweethearts. You won me over on the Rudy conversation.
Yeah, just...
Not that I ever loved it, but its flaws, much like Forrest Gump, its flaws become more apparent over the years.
And I'm voting again. It's more the fans of the movie that's the love of it. The movie that makes guys cry. No, it's not. Doubt the X-Files.
Doubt.
Were you an X-Files fan as a kid?
My sister was. I wasn't.
Yeah, I feel like I'm missing something, but I just never got into it. Basic Instinct, Shaft, 2000.
Both are awful. Which one do you like?
I mean, Basic Instinct's more, I don't know. I can't take
memorable.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
500 Days of Summer Network. That's not fair.
That is not fair. That is not fair. Those movies are incredible. Oh, man. Reluctantly Network, because I don't want to take anything. I think people miss out on just how beautiful 500 Days of Summer is.
Yeah. That's hard. I'll go with you. But 500 Days of Summer is amazing.
I love that movie.
Layer Cake, Sherlock Holmes.
Both Guy Ritchie movies, I believe. Or is Layer Cake maybe not?
I think Layer Cake's from like one of his disciples.
Maybe Matthew Vaughn, maybe? Yeah. Sherlock Holmes. I'd probably watch that instead. It's a very easy movie to watch.
Yeah. Deadpool 2, The Terminator.
Deadpool 2.
Yeah. About Schmidt, Kong, Skull Island.
About Schmidt.
Agreed. Double Jeopardy, Live Free or Die Hard.
Double Jeopardy.
Sure. I don't really have an opinion on that one. High Noon, Short Circuit.
High Noon.
I don't like Short Circuit at all. The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Primer.
The 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Agreed. Karate Kid Part 2, Fletch.
I don't care. Which one do you like?
Like Karate Kid 2 is like the one I don't really care about. Fletch, I guess I like, but I feel like Chevy Chase, I'm supposed to start hating, and if we keep doing this podcast in another 5, 6, 7 years, he could be a Dustin Hoffman type thing for me. Some of them are already starting to go that way, but Ready Player One, Fast Five.
Fast Five.
Get the old quarter out. I don't love Ready Player One. But congratulations. Fast Five it is. The Cell, In and Out.
In and Out. The Cell's just too far up its own ass.
Yeah. The Living Daylights, Fight Club.
Fight Club.
Yes. Wanted, Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber. It's a smarter movie.
Yeah, I mean, all Wanted is look how badass Angelina Jolie is every time she looks at the camera. Lake Placid, The Perfect Storm.
Perfect Storm.
Agreed. The Bling Ring, The Prestige.
Prestige.
Yeah, it's hard for me, though. I like The Bling Ring quite a bit, but The Prestige is one of the Nolan movies I like a lot. Cowboys and Aliens, Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty. How you can screw up a movie with aliens and cowboys, I have no idea.
You put them together? There's your show right there.
That's fair. Good night, everybody.